The Stanford Prison Experiment was a study in social psychology that investigated the psychological effect of power. It took place at Stanford University, California, on the 14th to the 20th of August, 1971. A group of researchers, led by Professor Philip Zimbardo, conducted the experiment on volunteer college students, assigning them to roles as either guards or prisoners, depending on the toss of a coin. Zimbardo himself presided as the superintendent of the supposed prison. Originally scheduled for 2 weeks, the resulting study was a controversial and disturbing fiasco that revealed the dark side of the human psyche. The study was funded by the U.S. Office of Naval Research after problems between guards and prisoners in U.S. Navy prisons. Investigating the power of roles, rules, symbols, and group identity, it quickly degenerated into a sadistic and authoritarian power game, reinforcing the uncomfortable truth that ordinary people can easily be led into reprehensible behavior, and that the recipients of that behavior will, for the most part, passively accept it. The 24 male participants were selected by test. Only those who were considered mentally stable and those without a criminal background were considered. Conducted in a 35-foot section of a basement at a university psychology building, the 12 prisoners were held in 6 by 9 feet cells, 24 hours a day, whilst the 12 guards lived in a different area, with rest and relaxation. 9 prisoners and 9 guards were active, with a further 3 prisoners and guards as potential substitutes. A research assistant took on the role of a warden, alongside Zimbardo's superintendent. In an orientation for the guards, Zimbardo asserted that while the guards could not be violent or withhold food and drink, they could instill a degree of fear and powerlessness, aimed at stripping the prisoners of all individuality. The guards wore uniforms, carried batons, and wore sunglasses to prevent eye contact, while the prisoners wore rough, ill-fitting smocks, as well as an ankle chain. Guards only referred to prisoners by a number. The Palo Alto Police Department assisted the study by conducting simulated arrests and processing of the prisoners, including mugshots and fingerprinting. From the police station, they were transported to the mock prison, even being strip-searched as they arrived. The small mock prison cells held 3 prisoners each. Down a small corridor was the prison yard, a closet for solitary confinement, and a bigger room across from the prisoners for the guards and warden. The prisoners were confined to the cells and yard 24/7 until the end of the study. The guards worked in teams of 3 for 8-hour shifts, and were not required to stay on site after their shifts ended. Those designated as guards had greatly differing responses to the situation. Those who were aggressive felt that they were doing the bidding of the study's organizers. Others felt sorry for the prisoners. Zimbardo's assistant, or warden, David Jaffe, encouraged the more lenient characters to adopt a get-tough attitude. The study began uneventfully. On day 2, prisoners in cell 1 blockaded their cell door with their beds, refusing to come out or follow guards' instructions. Guards from other shifts volunteered to come off duty and assist in subduing the revolt, which they did by attacking the prisoners with fire extinguishers. To counter the fact that each guard shift was outnumbered, one of the guards suggested they keep prisoners in line with psychological warfare. Prisoners who behaved were to be given special meals and better all-round treatment than those who resisted. 35 hours in, prisoner 8612 flew into a rage, screaming and cursing and demanding to be released. He was treated indifferently before eventually being released from the experiment. There's lots more to come in this video, but please consider subscribing, and please consider supporting my work with a PayPal donation. The link is in the description. Thank you. Stepping up their psychological warfare, guards forced the prisoners to repeat their prisoner numbers, aimed at assaulting their identity. Mistakes were punished by harassment or protracted physical exercise. Sanitary conditions declined rapidly. Prisoners who displeased the guards were not allowed to urinate or defecate anywhere except in a bucket placed in their cells, which would not be emptied. Mattresses were also removed as punishment, leaving prisoners to sleep on concrete. Further punishments included forced nudity. Guard cruelty escalated with every new punishment. The study concluded that 1/3 of the guards had sadistic tendencies, while others became caught up and corrupted by the situation. Zimbardo himself became sucked into the unreality. On day 4, there was a rumor amongst the guards that the released prisoner was planning to come back team-handed and forcibly release the others. The prison was disassembled and moved onto a different floor of the building. Zimbardo waited in the basement for the imagined mob to show up, to convince them that the experiment had been ended. When they never came, the prison was returned to its original location. Prisoners seemed to have similarly taken on their role. Many spoke of parole or getting out, appearing to forget that they could leave at any time. The turning point came when the replacement for the prisoner who had departed was brought into the study. Prisoner 416, with a fresh pair of eyes, immediately complained about treatment and conditions. The guards were furious, and when 416 refused to eat his sausages, announcing that he was on hunger strike, he was placed in the solitary confinement cupboard. The other prisoners were forced to bang on the door and shout to further intimidate him. The guards then tried to introduce collective punishment for any misbehavior. As the experiment descended into chaos, Zimbardo's girlfriend, who arrived to conduct research interviews, told Zimbardo that she found the experiment objectionable and immoral. After 6 days, on the 20th of August 1970, Zimbardo called the whole thing off. In his conclusions, Zimbardo thought that the prison system, rather than personality traits, had caused participants to act as they did. He also cited cognitive dissonance, the theory that individuals under stress will do things they otherwise would find objectionable. The ethics and conclusion of the study were widely attacked. It was alleged that much of the behavior was as a result of the direct intervention and encouragement of Zimbardo and others, as well as the so-called Hawthorne effect. In layman's terms, that the participants were playing to the gallery. In an unintended way, the study seemed to validate some theories outside its original remit, whilst not appearing to validate Zimbardo's own conclusions. Some good did come from the study. It was used to change the way youth offenders were treated in the US prison system. Overall, though, it was lightly regarded as science, with Zimbardo eventually admitting in 2018 that it was more demonstration than scientific experiment. Perhaps its greatest value is to the layman rather than the scientist. In 2020, of all years, it is a timely reminder of how hysteria and the degradation of others can drive some of us to indefensible mental or physical cruelty towards our fellow human beings.